Alexander Hart adjusted his crisp suit jacket as he wandered the fluorescent aisles of the local supermarket, a place he rarely visited since his personal assistant usually handled such mundane tasks. But tonight, after another grueling day at the office where he had just closed a multi-million-dollar merger that left him feeling more hollow than triumphant, he craved the anonymity of everyday life, the kind he had lost touch with years ago in his climb to the top as CFO of a sprawling tech conglomerate, his days filled with spreadsheets and strategy sessions that numbed his emotions like a perpetual winter. And as he absent-mindedly pushed his cart toward the checkout, his eyes caught a glimpse of something that pierced through his armored retina: a young woman, no older than 30, with disheveled hair and weary eyes rimmed red from unshed tears, standing at the customer service counter, her arms cradling a bundled infant whose soft whimpers echoed like a heartbreaking melody in the otherwise quiet store, and in her hand, she held a dented can of baby formula, the kind that promised nutrition for the tiniest lives, but her voice trembled as she explained to the indifferent clerk that she needed to return it because her card had been declined, the words spilling out in a rush of desperation mixed with shame, her shoulders slumping under the weight of a world that seemed determined to crush her spirit. And Alexander, who had always prided himself on his detachment, his ability to make cold calculations that propelled his career forward while leaving personal connections in the dust, felt an unfamiliar tug at his heart, a stirring of empathy he hadn't experienced since his own childhood days of scarcity before his relentless ambition erased those memories, and as he watched her fumble with the receipt, the baby stirring restlessly against her chest, he recalled his own loneliness. The echoing silence of his luxury apartment where the only company was the glow of his laptop screen and the occasional bottle of scotch to dull the ache of a life devoid of meaningful bonds, no family to call his own after a bitter divorce 5 years prior that had left him wary of vulnerability, and in that moment, something shifted within him, compelling him to step forward, his polished shoes clicking softly on the tiled floor as he approached the counter, clearing his throat to draw attention, and with the voice steadier than he felt, he offered to pay for the formula, pulling out his wallet without a second thought, the woman's eyes widening in disbelief as she turned to him, her face a mosaic of gratitude and suspicion, whispering a hesitant thank you that carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken struggles, and as the transaction completed, Alexander found himself lingering, asking her name. Emily, she said, her voice soft like a forgotten lullaby, and learning in fragmented sentences that she was a single mom, abandoned by her partner months ago, juggling 2 low-wage jobs while trying to keep her 6-month-old daughter, Lily, fed and safe in a cramped apartment that barely qualified as home, her dreams of a better life buried under mounting bills and endless exhaustion, and Alexander, whose wealth could buy islands but not companionship, felt the spark of purpose ignite within him, deciding on impulse to do more than just cover the cost of one can, slipping her a business card with an offer to help further if she needed it, though he doubted she would call, dismissing it as a fleeting act of charity to assuage his guilt over his privileged isolation. But as he drove home that night, the rain pattering against his windshield like accusatory fingers, he couldn't shake the image of Emily's tired smile or Lily's innocent gaze, replaying the scene in his mind until it blended with his own regrets, the family he never built, the relationships he sacrificed for success, and by morning, when his phone buzzed with an unknown number, it was Emily, her voice apologetic yet hopeful, explaining that Lily had fallen ill overnight, a fever that wouldn't break, and she couldn't afford the doctor's visit, her pride warring with necessity as she asked if his offer still stood, and Alexander, surprised by the rush of relief that flooded him, assured her it did, arranging to meet her at the clinic, where he not only covered the medical bills but sat with her through the anxious wait, holding Lily gently when Emily needed a moment to compose herself, the tiny girl's warmth seeping into his chest like a balm for his frozen heart, and as the doctor prescribed medication and assured them it was just a virus, Alexander realized this was no mere coincidence, that perhaps fate had placed him in that supermarket to bridge the chasm between their worlds, and over the following days, what began as financial aid evolved into something deeper, with Alexander visiting Emily's modest home, bringing groceries and toys for Lily, listening to Emily's stories of her pasta-bright student derailed by an unplanned pregnancy and a faithless partner while sharing fragments of his own life, the pressure of his high-stakes job, the emptiness that no promotion could fill, and as weeks turned into months, their encounters grew from obligatory check-ins to genuine companionship, Alexander finding joy in Lily's first giggles and Emily's resilient laughter, teaching him to appreciate the simple moments he had long overlooked, like sharing a homemade meal or watching the sunset from a park bench, and Emily, in turn, reminding him that vulnerability wasn't weakness but the foundation of true strength, her quiet determination inspiring him to reevaluate his priorities at work, where he began advocating for employee welfare programs, drawing from her experiences to push for better parental leave and affordable childcare initiatives, surprising his colleagues with this newfound passion that humanized the once aloof executive, and amid this transformation, Alexander grappled with emerging feelings, a tenderness toward Emily that blurred the lines between helper and friend, though he hesitated to voice it, fearing rejection or the complication of their dynamic. But one evening, as they sat on her worn couch, Lily asleep in her crib, Emily confessed her own growing affection, admitting that his kindness had restored her faith in people, and in a moment of raw honesty, they shared a tentative kiss that promised a future neither had anticipated, yet challenges loomed, with Alexander's demanding schedule pulling him away and Emily's insecurities about their disparate backgrounds whispering doubts, but through it all, their bond strengthened, weathering arguments and misunderstandings with the grace of two souls finally finding harbor. And as Alexander reflected on that fateful supermarket encounter, he marveled at how one small act had unraveled his solitude, weaving him into the fabric of a family he never knew he needed, setting the stage for even greater changes ahead, where his world would expand in ways unimaginable, touching not just their lives but trickling outward to inspire others in unexpected ways, all stemming from that single, compassionate choice in the glow of all seven.
As the seasons shifted from the chill of autumn to the bloom of spring, Alexander Hart found himself increasingly entangled in the vibrant chaos of Emily and Lily's world, a stark contrast to the sterile precision of his corporate existence, where board meetings once dominated his calendar now shared space with playdates and doctor's appointments, and he reveled in the transformation, discovering a version of himself that laughed freely and loved deeply. But beneath the surface warmth, shadows lingered, with Emily's ex-partner resurfacing unexpectedly, a man named Jake who had vanished when responsibility beckoned, now claiming remorse and demanding visitation rights for Lily, his sudden appearance like a storm cloud over their budding happiness, forcing Emily into a whirlwind of legal consultations that drained her emotionally and financially, and Alexander, drawing on his resources and network, stepped in without hesitation, hiring a top family lawyer to protect her interests, standing by her side during tense court hearings where Jake's insincerity unraveled under scrutiny, his history of abandonment laid bare, and as the judge ruled in Emily's favor, granting her full custody with no obligations to the unreliable father, Alexander felt a surge of protectiveness that solidified his role not just as a benefactor but as a pillar in their lives. Yet this victory came at a cost, stirring up Emily's old wounds and prompting her to question if she was leaning too heavily on Alexander's support, fearing she might lose her independence in the shadow of his affluence. And in a moment of vulnerability one starry night on her balcony, she voiced these concerns, tears glistening as she admitted her love for him but her dread of becoming just another acquisition in his world, and Alexander, his heart aching at her words, knelt before her, assuring her that she was his equal, his inspiration, not a project but a partner, and to prove it, he proposed a radical idea using his position to help her pursue her long-abandoned dream of becoming a teacher, enrolling her in online courses and arranging flexible childcare through his company's new programs, watching with pride as she dove into studies with renewed vigor, her confidence blooming like the flowers in the park where they often strolled, Lily toddling between them, her chubby hands grasping theirs in a symbol of unity, and as Emily excelled, earning top grades and internships at local schools, Alexander confronted his own demons, the lingering isolation that had defined him, deciding to scale back his hours at work, delegating more to his team and even mentoring young executives on work-life balance, a concept he once scoffed at but now championed, inspired by the joy he found in family dinners and bedtime stories, where Lily's innocent questions about the world melted away the stress of quarterly reports, and their relationship deepened, evolving from tentative romance to committed partnership, with Alexander moving them into a cozy home he purchased not as a grand gesture but as a shared space they decorated together, blending his modern tastes with her warm, eclectic style, creating a haven filled with laughter and love. Yet life threw another curve when Lily was diagnosed with a rare but treatable heart condition during a routine checkup, the news hitting like a thunderbolt, sending Emily into a spiral of fear and Alexander into action mode, rallying specialists and covering experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't touch, holding Emily through sleepless nights in hospital waiting rooms, their bond tested and fortified in the crucible of crisis. And as Lily underwent successful surgery, her tiny chest rising steadily under the monitors, Alexander realized the fragility of life, prompting him to propose to Emily in the hospital chapel, a simple ring symbolizing not wealth but eternal commitment, and she accepted with tears of joy, their wedding an intimate affair surrounded by newfound friends from both their worlds, colleagues who saw Alexander's softer side and Emily's community of single parents who admired her resiliency. And in the aftermath, Alexander's act of kindness rippled further, as he established a foundation in Lily's name, funding programs for struggling families with access to formula, medical care, and education, turning his personal story into a beacon for others. Media outlets picking up on the lonely CFO's miracle, interviews where he credited Emily for changing him, motivating viewers worldwide to extend hands to those in need. And years later, as they watched Lily grow into a spirited child, excelling in school with dreams of her own, Alexander reflected on that rainy supermarket night, how returning a can of formula had been the catalyst for everything, mending his loneliness, building a family, and inspiring a legacy of compassion that extended far beyond their home, proving that one person's choice to see and act can indeed change everything, weaving threads of hope through the tapestry of humanity, leaving an indelible mark on all who heard their tale.